What about like I guess just getting like bang for your buck? And so let's say that somebody just they want to get in some good training and they just don't want the training to take, long periods of time. And so they're going to utilize some compound movements in an effort to kind of work the full body, like work the entire body, and not necessarily, they're not really super worried about like targeting the quads or targeting specific muscle groups. They want to get some good exercise in, some good resistance training and some good strength training. Do you think it'd be wise for those people to utilize, we kind of hear people say like, I utilize a bench squat or deadlift because it has the most bang for its buck. It reduces the amount of time that I need to be in the gym, and I get kind of a full body exercise out of it, because something even like bench pressing, which kind of seems like it's for the chest, works the entire body. So what are some of your thoughts on that?
Okay, so let's just say you've got a compound exercise. Let's just say parallel bar dips. And you say, I'm working three body parts. I'm working my pecs, my triceps, and my front deltoids. And if it were true that the triceps, the pectorals, and the front deltoids are being worked as well as would be worked if you worked three different exercises, one for each of those groups, then it would truly be a great time-saving exercise. But that isn't the way it is. You're going to get not only too much load on the front deltoid, you're going to get too much stretch on the front deltoid when you go low, right? Because that's way farther back than your humerus ideally should go. Right, the elongated position for the front deltoid is only about like that. When you're going like that, you're really stretching that front deltoid. And where does the front deltoid contract? Right about there. But you're not finishing a parallel bar dip there. You're finishing way short of that contraction. So you're not, even though it's the most loaded, you're not actually doing what is most productive for the front deltoid. You're not doing what's most productive for the tricep. You're not doing what's most productive for the pecs. So a bodybuilder who does that exercise still does a chest exercise, a tricep exercise, and maybe a front deltoid exercise. Mm-hmm. So they haven't actually saved time at all, because they haven't replaced those other three exercises, and they haven't gotten full benefit for any of those muscles over here. So if your objective is to get a semi-good workout for the triceps, pectorals, and front deltoids, and your priority is to save time, then great, go ahead and do the parallel bar dip, even though it's got a high risk of injury for the front deltoid. But most people would say, well, I didn't know I was getting a reduced benefit. I didn't know that I had an increased risk. If I can just do those three exercises over there and get max benefit, no risk of injury, I'd rather not do the dips. So it's not an apples and apples comparison.
What about something like how many sets and stuff? Because it seems like you're finding a great way to get optimal stimulation very quickly because of the way that you're thinking about the exercises. So do we still need to do 3 sets, 5 sets? And in addition to that, how many different exercises would we need? Again, because if we're targeting the muscle very directly, we maybe perhaps don't need as many reps, as many sets, and so on.
It is true that when you have an exercise that rates a 10, that you're getting more bang for the buck with that one exercise than you would with other exercises. But the thing that's important is that one of the things that a muscle needs for growth is volume, enough sets, right? So now we're going to start getting into a little physiology. Now this is kind of leaving mechanics and moving into physiology. And studies have shown that you can make a muscle grow one of two ways. You can make it grow with very, very high fatigue, i.e., lighter weight, higher reps, or you can make it grow. You can stimulate recruitment is what it's called. You can stimulate recruitment also by using a very high, a weight that is a high percentage of that muscle's maximum effort. Okay, so if you were going to do one set, 50 reps over there, 6 reps over here. Over here, you're going to go to failure because that's what fatigue growth requires, going to failure. So now you've done that, and now you're going to go over here. You're going to do one set of 6. Let's just say you could have done 7, but you stop at 6. You didn't go to failure. You didn't fatigue out. Every one of the 6 reps you did over there produced growth because every one of them was heavy enough to recruit a significant number of fibers. Over here, you didn't get growth-producing reps until you got near the end, right? But along the way, you produce a lot of lactic acid. You also produce a lot of systemic fatigue. Okay, so now both of these people, let's just say, got the same amount of growth, one set each. Each person says, but I want more growth. Okay, fine. This guy over here maybe can do one, maybe two more of those 50 rep sets before he's wiped out. This guy over here can do 12 sets. So he gets more growth.
Yeah.
And he never even went to failure. And he never had systemic fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And he never had huge amounts of lactic acid. So when someone says, well, how did Arnold and those guys get so big back then? And I would say, well, it's sort of an accident. They did 4 exercises per muscle group, 5 sets per exercise, 20 sets per muscle, right? So if you ask them, why do you think you grew? They say, well, because I did a variety of exercises. No, it's because most of those exercises were 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, 8, maybe one was a 10, maybe one was a 2, but you did a lot of sets. And so you got a lot of growth. So I'm not saying you need 20 sets, but 10 sets of super efficient exercises will give you the same or more growth than 20 sets of a mix of exercises that included a lot of not so efficient exercises. So you still need sets. You still need volume.
Yes, I mean this is actually a good thing for us to talk about here, because when a lot of people are thinking about doing bodybuilding movements, a lot of people really overuse failure. They feel that when they go to failure, you reach mechanical failure, and towards the end of a set, you are recruiting more muscle fibers, but they feel that since they feel that way, that they're growing. Whereas if you were to have every set be kind of close to failure, you'd be able to do a substantial amount of more work. So with that being said, for you and your training, or maybe the way that you structure things, if it even comes to play, where does failure ever come in, if it does?
Right. That's a great question. And this is actually the heart of the argument. This is the crux. This is where, there's a lot of people doing exercises that are not great exercises, but most people think that a set that's not taken to failure is wasted. And I've made all the mistakes. I've learned the hard way. I've done breakdown sets. I've done, supersetting exercises for the same muscle group. I've done, forced reps. Mm-hmm. I've done short rests. All of these things are fatigue oriented. And so if we believe that those are growth producing sets, then what we believe is that fatigue is the only or primary stimulator of muscle growth, when in fact it not only isn't the primary stimulator of muscle growth, it's also to some degree inhibitory of muscle growth, because every set that you take to failure forces you to compromise on the next set, 2, 4, 5 sets. In other words, you'll end up doing fewer sets because you can't do more sets. You're forced to do fewer sets. You also lose your ability to contract. Right. So you can't use as much weight. Everything gets compromised once you go to failure. So here's the thing. Let's just say that you're going to ask yourself kind of a philosophical question. What do I have control over? If I want to grow the most possible, what do I have control of and what don't I have control over? Right. Well, you know that once a muscle reaches maximum fatigue, you do not have control to continue. Right. So fatigue is not something you can control. What about the amount of weight? Well, you know that there's only so much you can lift. Maximum is maximum, and beyond that, you don't have control over. But you can always do more sets. How about now?
Yep. There we go. Yeah, so you were just saying, you're finishing up saying you can always do more sets, and then you went on probably a really awesome rant and speech, and we missed it.
Yeah, we all missed it. I can't remember what it was now. No, you can get more growth with more sets of 95% effort than you can with fewer sets of 100 or 110% effort. But people feel guilty putting the weight down. And may I also say that, all of us remember, well, they're not doing it so much anymore, especially since there's very few printed bodybuilding publications anymore. But most of us remember that picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger doing that low pulley row, and he's screaming, right? We think that's how we're supposed to train. We think that we have to go, and Tom Platt, same thing. We think we have to go beyond human capacity. And when we look at these guys and they're so muscular, we think that must be the key. And it's easy to believe that there has to be a very, very, very high price to pay in order to get muscle growth. And it can't possibly be easy. But yet you could have a fantastic workout without ever having to scream, without ever having to fail, without ever having to quiver, right? You can literally walk away from the workout not feeling like you got hit by a truck. And yet knowing that muscle went as far as that muscle could go, because there is eventually a natural limit to how many sets you can do.